and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are already part of my family, thank you so much for joining me once again. For those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Kiara Selena. I'm a practical nurse, and on my channel I mainly talk nursing, nursing education, nursing school tips, and NCLEX. Everything nursing is on Nursing with Key. So if you are starting your nursing journey, or if you're thinking about starting a nursing journey, please make sure you subscribe by banging on that red subscribe button down below somewhere here, and also turn on your notification bell. That way you will be notified whenever I post future content. So I know that you guys probably noticed that the background is different from what it usually is. This background I don't think you guys have seen before, maybe once or twice, but this is my bedroom. That's why I have my vision board and everything behind me. If you guys want to see how I did that vision board, by the way, I do have a video out. I will leave it down below if you guys want to check that out. But yeah, I wanted to have, you know, a little one-on-one talk with you guys today about something that is kind of important to me, and something that I just need to speak to my CNAs about. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about how to be a better CNA. Now, you guys are probably thinking, like, where is she going with this? What exactly is she talking about? But for those of you who don't know, I did work as a CNA. I worked as a CNA for 2 years before I finished school and became an LPN, or a licensed practical nurse. And so I know what being a CNA is. I know a lot about what it's like being a CNA, but I feel like a lot of CNAs out there don't understand exactly what their job is. A lot of CNAs actually don't know how vital their role is in healthcare. And this is me saying this as, you know, an ex-CNA, now nurse, right? As a nurse, I can kind of see things from a different perspective. And I just wanted to come, you know, and kind of talk to you guys about how to be, like I said before, a better CNA, and to also kind of explain to you guys that being a CNA isn't all about just bathing and clothing people. That's not what being a CNA is. A lot of CNAs think that all they have to do is come into work, master their routine, and do no thinking. Just master your routine, come to work, do your routine, and leave all the thinking to the nurse. But being a CNA actually does require some critical thinking. I mean, I know some of you guys are gonna say, well, that's common sense. Like, I know, but common sense ain't common, baby. Let me tell you, I've had to tell some CNAs some things. And yeah, let's just get into the convo. Already knows this, but for the people who were in the back of the class not paying attention, for the people who are asleep, let me just remind you that as a CNA, you are the closest person to the resident or to the patient. You are the one who sees them the most, right? Nurses do see their patients, we do see our residents, but we're very in and out of the room, right? We go in, we give our meds, and we're on to the next room. Or we go in, we do our treatment, and we're on to the next room. However, as a CNA, you're really there side by side with the resident, with the patients, basically throughout the whole entire day. You are bathing them, you are clothing them, you're toileting them, you're feeding them. You're really there with them the most, right? And with that being said, there are some things that you may see that we, the nurses, might not see, right? Whether LPN, RN, it doesn't really matter, but we would not see, right? So for example, let's say your resident, you're changing your resident or you're toileting your resident, and you see that they have, you know, redness on their bum, or a rash developing, or, you know, anything, right? As a nurse, we might not see that, because even though basic care, don't get me wrong, basic care is part of our jobs. Sometimes even when I'm not busy, because I have days where I'm just not as busy as other days. And sometimes I will help the CNAs out, and I will, you know, give somebody a shower if I have the time. But that is not really the bulk of our work. That's not what we're doing on a daily basis, because we have other things to do. Not because we don't want to or because we think we're too good to do it, but we have other things to do, right? So I might not see that redness on the patient's bum unless you tell me that there's something. Then the nurse can actually go in, the nurse can evaluate, the nurse can see what's going on, and maybe get some type of cream prescribed, or maybe tell you what to do next, right? But if you don't say anything to the nurses, right? Like I said, there's some things that you might see that we won't see, right? So you need to speak, you need to communicate with the nurses, right? You are a nursing assistant, so you're there, yes, to help the patients and stuff, but you're also there to assist the nurses, because you guys, like I said, I'm gonna say it one more time, you guys see some things that we don't see. Sometimes you might even notice something about the resident that we might not notice, because once again, you guys are the closest person to the residents, to the patients. So you guys have to keep open communication, not only with the patients, but you guys have to communicate with the nurses. Please. And this one is so small. However, it's such a big thing. Communication. I've seen CNAs walk into rooms of maybe residents or patients who do not respond back, and they just go in there. They don't talk to the resident. They don't even introduce themselves. They just barge into the resident's room. The resident is laying on the bed, and they just start ripping their brief apart. Like, hold on. Back up a little bit. First of all, you're about to start touching their genitals and stuff. Like, that is hella private. The least you could do, if you have respect for your resident, is walk in there, smile, tell them what you're about to do, tell them who you are, introduce yourself. And even if the resident doesn't respond, that doesn't mean they can't hear. That doesn't mean they don't know what's going on. That doesn't mean anything. So just because your patient or your resident isn't able to speak, or they don't speak, it doesn't mean that this is not a human being who is able to hear, who's able to understand, and who isn't able to feel. That person is still able to feel. That person is still able to hear. That person is still a human being at the end of the day. So when you're walking into a room, okay, like, the patient or the resident not being responsive, well, I don't want to say responsive, but not responding to you is not an excuse for you to just walk up in there and treat them like they're a rag doll. This is not the mannequin from the lab, at school. This is a real human being with feelings, with emotions, that's breathing. It's a real person. Treat it as such. That's all I'm trying to say. A residence that I work at, and one of the CNAs goes into a resident's room, and she realizes that the resident is a lot more confused than they usually are, right? The patient, or I keep saying the patient, the resident does get a little bit mixed up sometimes, but they're never really like too confused. They're able to hold a conversation. They know where they are. They know what year it is. Orientation times 3, usually, right? But she goes in the resident's room, and, she realizes that the resident is a little bit mixed up, and she doesn't really think about it, or she doesn't really think too much of it at first. But then she starts to speak to the resident more and more, and then she realizes that the resident is completely out of it, right? So she's in the room, and she's supposed to toilet the resident, get the resident dressed and up and ready for breakfast. But for the elderly, I would say 80% of the time, if they are a little bit more confused than usual, a lot of the times it's because of a UTI. The CNA knew that. She knows. And this is not like, nobody come and tell me that this isn't in our scope of practice. This is assessment. Because I'm not saying that you guys have to go out there and you guys have to assess, or you guys have to try to figure out what is going on. No. But she was on top of her stuff. She knows that, okay, this resident is confused. And, based on my experience, I know that usually when residents are confused, the first thing the nurse will do is a dipstick. They will, want to do a urinalysis to see if the patient has a UTI. So what did she do? She went and got the little hat. I don't know what it's called. You guys know. I'm going to leave a picture somewhere up here, but you guys know the little hat that you put down on the toilet seat so that the resident can pee on it. So she didn't panic or anything. She, changed the resident. She cleaned them well. She got them to sit on the hat. She got them to pee, set them up for breakfast. And then she came to me and she said, hey, so so-and-so person is a little bit more confused than usual. I know that you guys usually do dipsticks, to see if the patient has a UTI. So I got the resident to pee in the hat. It's already there if you want to just go do the dipstick and rule that out right away. And I was really, really happy that she did that, right? And it's not only, like, it also saved her some time because, she didn't have to wait for me. She didn't wait to come tell me, hey, the resident is confused, and then wait for me to have to tell her, well, can you go get the patient to pee in the hat, right? It's already done. So she didn't have to go back with the resident, get the resident, take off the brief, take off the pants, get the resident to sit and do everything all over. She knew I was going to ask her to do that, so she just did it in advance. So I was just like, okay, cool. I went, I saw the resident. I saw that the resident was a little bit confused, and I got my dipstick. I went, I did my dipstick. The resident actually did have a UTI. I called the doctor up. Hey, this is what's happening. This is what the dipstick shows me. He prescribed antibiotics. We started the antibiotics, and 2 days later, that person was already much, much better, right? So think ahead, right? use your head. It's not just about mastering a routine, right? There's actual thinking involved, and you will see that the nurses will appreciate you, that you're on top of your stuff, and you're not doing it to impress the nurses. You're doing it because you want to give good quality of care to your residents. And yeah, don't wait till the nurses have to do everything. A lot of times, I'm telling you, a lot of CNAs think that all the thinking is just for the nurses, and all they have to do is change and feed, and that's it. No thinking involved, no communication involved. That is not what being a CNA is. I'm so sorry. You go into a resident's room. This resident has a catheter. The resident tells you that they're feeling like abdominal pain or something, or whatever. Nobody's saying go get a stethoscope and start auscultating or anything like that. Nobody's saying that. But you know this resident has a catheter. So something you can do is just open your eyes and just look. Just look. Look at the catheter. What does it look like? Sometimes there's just a kink, and all you have to do is undo the kink. And actually, your fave nurse B made a video for CNAs talking about catheter kink, so make sure you guys go check that out. I'm probably gonna leave the link down below so that you guys can go check that out, but she has a really great video for that. So all you have to do is undo the kink, right? And then you'll see that the urine will start draining down. If you do that and it makes no difference, then you can go to the nurse, because maybe in that case, like an irrigation needs to be done or something else needs to be done. But the issues aren't always big problems. It's not always big problems. So all you have to do is just use your head, open your eye, use your head, use your brain, open your eyes a little bit more, and you're gonna see, you're gonna make a big difference. Let's talk constipation. Great. You go into a resident's room and they are complaining that they have abdominal pain, or maybe they don't really like talk that much, but you're seeing that they're groaning and they're touching their stomach or whatever. So by seeing that body language, you should be able to guess that, okay, well, maybe this person is, constipated or something. Don't just run to the nurse like, nurse, this patient has abdominal pain. No, use your head. What could it be? It's probably, or it could be, constipation. That is the whole reason why we have the BM book. Go in the BM book and see when was the last time this person had a bowel movement. If it was 3 days ago, well, I don't know how it works in your facility, but at least in mine, after 2-3 days, it's prune juice, then it's milk of magnesia, then it's a fleet, right? You don't need a prescription. You don't need the nurse's permission to give somebody prune juice. If you know that that person is not allergic to prune juice, if you know that that person is not dysphagic and they're able to drink it, just give them prune juice. Just give them the prune juice. Well, go talk to the nurse, right? Prepare the prune juice or whatever, but go talk to the nurse. Let the nurse know what's going on. The nurse is going to tell you to give them prune juice anyway, because, well, at least in my facility, that's what I would tell the CNAs to do. Like, give the resident prune juice, or I would go give the resident prune juice, because that's the first thing that we do when we see that a person is having, signs of constipation. We don't just jump to fleet automatically. We start with the less invasive stuff, and then we work our way up there, right? So you don't have to wait till the nurse tells you, go give the resident prune juice. Give the resident the prune juice. Go tell the nurse what's going on. Say, hey, the person has been having some discomfort, some abdominal discomfort. I checked in the BM book. They haven't had a BM for 3 days. They haven't had a BM for 2 days or whatever. I figured maybe it's constipation or something. I gave them prune juice. Great. Thank you so much for doing that. Let me know if the patient has a bowel movement, or, and then the nurse is going to chart it, and then also put it in the BM book afterwards. That's the whole reason why we have the BM book. So that's another example. I know that the things that I mentioned for all of you guys is going to be common sense, but there are some people out there who don't know. Trust me, there are some people out there who don't know. I've seen them, and maybe it's not intentional. Some people probably just don't know, and some people probably just don't care, because I know a lot of people end up working as CNAs because it's a fast way to kind of get stability, to get an okay paying job, and to kind of get out there and working. Some people have degrees from other places, and then they come here and they're unable to use their degree, and then they just resort to that, right? And so they just don't care. But even if you're that person, even if nursing is not your thing, even if it's not what you're passionate about, honestly, you have two options, right? you can either stay at your job, but please just take into consideration and please remember that the people you are taking care of are real human beings. So just treat them with respect. Treat them the way you would want your mother, your father, or yourself to be treated. And if you're unhappy to the point where you're going to abuse your patients or your residents, or you're unhappy to the point where you're not even going to care to neglect them, even though you see that they're suffering, that they're in pain, honestly, I mean, go work as a cashier or something. Go do something else. And this is not to be rude, but at least working in a setting like that, working, in retail or working at a call center or working somewhere else, you're not going to have lives in your hands. But don't mistreat people, just because you need to make a coin. Make a coin out like some other way, because it's already hard enough for people to, have to leave their parents in, the care of other people. They're already scared because they don't know what kind of quality of care their parents are gonna get. They're already scared because they don't really know who they're leaving their parents with. The least you could do is just treat these people with respect. Treat them like human beings. Don't just treat them badly because you're unhappy in the situation that you're in. I always say, if you're unhappy in the situation that you're in, change it. But it is not Mr. Smith's fault. It is not Mrs. Teresa's fault that you're in a situation that you're unhappy in. She doesn't have to pay because of the personal issues you're going through. And that's on period. That is the end of today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have anything you want to add, or if I forgot anything, please leave them down in the comment section down below. That helps me a lot. And yeah, once again, thank you guys for watching. If you are not yet subscribed, please make sure you do so. Bang on that red subscribe button and turn on your notification bells. And I really hope to see you all in my next one. Stay safe and much love. Bye.